Hello and welcome to Diablo 4. I'm Shadowcoast and welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to outline what I believe to be a very strong Barbarian Whirlwind leveling build. That's right, we're going to focus on Whirlwind and I'm going to outline what I believe is one of the strongest builds, especially when leveling. Late game, once you kind of max out in Paragon, you're going to want to switch it up. Now, one caveat that I will say for most characters, but especially Barbarian, depending on which items you have, you're going to want to change your build. So you should hopefully have more than enough gold to refund and respec at your will based off your items. So if you have much better items, say some dual wielding weapons, then I do not recommend a whirlwind build. So obviously use your best judgment. If you do go on to find this helpful, please consider dropping a thumbs up. That support really helps the channel. Let's get started. Number one, I recommend getting Lunging Strike. This is really great because you're going to launch forward or lunge forward so you can run down your targets much quicker than any of these other options. So I'd recommend going ahead and putting a point into lunging strike. I'm just going to level it up here to 5, and then obviously we're going to want to get enhanced lunging strike. We're going to deal increased damage, and then here um, we have a choice between a critical granting berserking, which is awesome, or inflicting bleeding damage over 5 seconds. It really depends on some later options here. Oh, I randomly clicked something down here. We'll come back to that in a minute by accident, but I prefer putting bleeding damage on in general. But obviously, this one, Combat Lunging Strike, is also good. So between these two, it's up to you. If you have high crit in your build, then I would recommend going Combat Lunging Strike. But early on, you're probably not going to have too high of a crit, so we're going to go for guaranteed damage in Battle Lunging Strike. From there, we're going to want to upgrade Whirlwind. I'm going to come here. I already have weapons that upgrade my Whirlwind, so this is one of the things where you're going to want to respec as you get weapons that increase different abilities. So we're 7 out of 10 with my current item set. We're going to want to get Enhanced Whirlwind. Gain 1 Fury each time Whirlwind deals direct damage, so that'll allow you to Whirlwind longer. That is the point of the Whirlwind build. You want to be Whirlwinding as much as possible to the best degree possible. So we're going to upgrade this. Now, between these two, Furious Whirlwind, while using a slashing weapon, Whirlwind also inflicts 40% of its base damage as bleeding damage. After using Whirlwind for 2 seconds, deal 30% increased damage. So we're going to go with Violent Whirlwind. This is more guaranteed. If you do have a slashing damage weapon, you can think about this, but Violent Whirlwind is almost always going to be better, in my opinion. From there, we're going to come down here. Now, this is where we're going to have to make some decisions. I think I clicked on something down here, but I didn't mean to. Now, I personally like Ground Stomp. There is some debate. You could go Rallying Cry, which is also important. We're going to get to that in a minute here. And then War Cry. But my personal preference here, especially when leveling, is to go Ground Stomp for a few reasons. We're going to do 1 point in Ground Stop, and then we are going to upgrade Rallying Cry. So I like Ground Stop just to stun them. And we're going to see here when we upgrade it, increase duration by 1 second. And then here we can either generate Fury, but what I like to do is reduce my ultimate skill by 1 second. So I do recommend putting at least 1 point into Ground Stomp and then upgrading over to Strategic Ground Stomp, because then when you do get your ultimate, you're going to be able to ultimate more often, outputting significantly more damage. This will be especially helpful in certain boss fights later on. From there, I would fully upgrade Rallying Cry. This is our Fury generation. You can see here, Bellow Rallying Cry increasing your movement speed, which is helpful to run down enemies if you need to, and Resource Generation, which is the most important, so you can keep your Fury meter up. We're going to upgrade this to become unstoppable while active. So if there are things around you that are going to slow you down or impede your movement or anything like that, you can pop Rallying Cry to run through it and get to your target. From there, we have Strategic Rallying Cry, which grants life and Fortify, which is nice, or Fury. I personally like the Fury because we get additional resource generation. And so when this is active, based off our other upgrade over here, gain 1 Fury each time Whirlwind deals direct damage to an enemy, or 4 Fury against elite enemies. So basically, when we start Whirlwinding with this active, we're going to generate more Fury, which will allow us to keep Whirlwinding, which is kind of the point. What keeps happening? It seems like oh, it's just like random noise. Okay. So from there, after you upgrade those two things, I do recommend kind of upgrading them until you get to this next level. I personally skip, at least in my initial build, brawling skills. We're going to come back to a few of these a little bit later. But coming down here, I highly recommend in the Whirlwind Blow that you get Death Blow and then upgrade this. Death Blow deals 100% increased damage to a boss. And then if Death Blow damages at least one enemy, gain Berserking, so that's going to increase our damage. Highly recommend that one over Fury Generation. We've already covered Fury Generation up here, so I do recommend Death Blow because Death Blow is going to give you much needed damage, especially against elite enemies and bosses in your leveling build. From there, coming down to your ultimate. I personally prefer Iron Maelstrom. There are arguments for Call of Ancients. Wrath of the Berserker is okay. You gain Berserking and Unstoppable. But if we look at these, I really recommend Iron Maelstrom. This is going to do wonders for you, and you're going to be able to cool down your ultimate with Ground Stomp up here when we upgrade it to Strategic Ground Stomp. So we're going to circle them up, hit them with Iron Maelstrom, hit Ground Stomp to reduce the cooldown. Iron Maelstrom gains 10%. We're going to upgrade this. These are no-brainers. They do wonders when you upgrade them. So you can see here what these are if you want to pause. Now from here, we're going to double back because to get down here, we're going to want to focus on specific damage output. I'm all about damage output. So what I recommend is really focusing on Pit Fighter. You deal 3 times damage percent increased damage to close enemies. So we're going to fully upgrade Pit Fighter at 6% distant damage reduction. So this makes sure we're reducing damage from a distance, doing increased damage when up close, and then we're going to come back down here as soon as we can. And we have a couple options here. So I recommend hitting Walking Arsenal, dealing direct damage with a two-handed bludgeoning, two-handed slashing, or dual wielding weapons grants 10% increased damage for 6 seconds. When all 3 damage bonuses are active, you will gain an additional 15% increased damage. So the reason this is nice is because we picked Iron Maelstrom, where when we drop this, we're going to use all 3 arsenal setups. So our two-handed bludgeoning, two-handed slashing, and dual wielding option. So we're going to proc Walking Arsenal at any given time. And while all 3 damage bonuses are active, you gain an additional 15%. So that's 25% increased damage for 6 seconds. This is hugely beneficial, especially when burning down elites, as well as bosses in your leveling build. From there, I do recommend coming back up here. It's up to you, but I personally like doing No Mercy for immobilized, stunned, or slowed enemies because we do have Ground Stomp. So I like No Mercy. I also like Expose Vulnerability, dealing direct damage with a weapon. Mastery skill causes your next core skill to make enemies vulnerable. So we're going to basically make them vulnerable so they take increased damage. From there, I do like to double back to Ground Stomp. You can see here as we upgrade this, we're reducing the cooldown, increasing the damage, which is hugely beneficial from that perspective. So we're going to want to do increased damage from that perspective. Now, these are our core moves, right? Now, from here, we're really just looking at different variable upgrades. So I would recommend, at this point, you're probably going to be really close to reaching level 50. It's really up to you. I personally like, wallop bludgeoning weapons. Now, if we look here, it's going to kind of pick, well, hold on. We're going to put it on auto pick. Yeah, it's going to pick the best weapon. So depending on your weapon type, this is where some of these other ones are going to be really variable. It's really up to you. I always go for damage output. So because I'm going to be focusing on two-handed weapons in this build, given Whirlwind, if we look at Whirlwind, here we can technically use any complete arsenal weapon, including our two-handed one, but lunging, also any complete arsenal weapon. I tend to focus on the two-handed weapons because that's what I assign, but that's also because those are the better weapons I have. So again, any of these other points are really up to you to upgrade. So just be thoughtful about your gear. Some good ones down here. I do like heavy-handed if you are using those two-handed weapons often. You could go with thick skin to give you more survivability if you're dying. A slaying strike is good if you're using slashing weapons and you're applying that bleed. In this case, because we do have. I don't even remember what I have. Yeah, I'm prioritizing my pole arm here, which is slashing. I just got that recently. So, this one's actually good because we would apply some bleeding, which is nice. And then if you're really looking for quality of life, you can go swiftness. I mean, here if you're just running around, that's helpful. But to me, that's not really worth it. You're much better off getting some damage resistance. So down here, I like thick skin, kind of over aggressive resistance because we're only going to be berserking a certain period of time. We're here, if we're always taking damage, we're going to get it. So that is my recommended whirlwind leveling build and how I would fill it out as you go down the tree. If you did find this helpful, please drop a thumbs up and I hope to see you in future videos. Shadow Coast out.